Hello, it's me, Zoltanous, here again on another episode of Fascio podcast. Today we're going to be talking with New Frontier, and joining me as the guest again is Censored Anon.
Co-host, but greetings.
Sorry, I'm a retard. Today's guest is...
I said this guest is on every one of your shows. So.
Yeah, that was a mess up, man. Oh, well, we'll just leave it in. That'd be a pretty funny joke. Yeah. But yeah, today we have Cultured Thug and Bill Cooper on with us. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, Cultured Thug. I've been making third position content for some years now. You can find my video collection on Odyssey at Cultured Thug or at BitChute at Cultured Thug. But if you're in Europe, you're not going to be able to view the BitChute channel. So I would recommend going to Odyssey. I'm also involved with what Bill and I are involved with together, the New Frontier. This is, we created a political platform and we're trying to build support and funds to finance and push forward a political run on the main stage of politics with a third position platform. So check that out. newfrontierusa.org is our blog. Our platform's there. Articles are there. We have a bookstore there. We've been printing books to help fund what we're trying to do. Every cent of every super chat donation, book sell, anything we get, every cent goes into the war chest to fund the handful of people that plan on running on a third positionist platform in modern politics. So check that out and support it, especially if you support third position ideals and you want to see them manifested off the internet and into real life. The LARP is over, people. So get behind it.
Is there anything you want to say, Bill?
Yeah, I'm Bill Cooper. I got involved with New Frontier at the beginning. I'm one of the hosts of Ronin Report, and I'm a third positionist that's trying to push this platform.
Oh, I forgot Ronin Report. Yeah, New Frontier on YouTube. Ronin Report, we do that once a week. And then we have another podcast, Third Way Radio, that also happens once a week. So, yeah, so check out the New Frontier YouTube page as well.
Alrighty then. And I know we're going to be going over the platform today on American Third Position. So just kind of give everybody an idea and just talk about it a bit. And because it is a pretty interesting platform and it's not really something that you see really represented by any mainstream party. It has a lot of broad appeal. But I do think one thing we could probably start the conversation off on is obviously it's not pushing any of the autistic stuff that you see with race politics that takes over. I guess you could say quote unquote third position politics with white nationalists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We purposefully left identity out of the platform because I believe most Americans are done with it, are sick with it. We're stuck in these echo chambers online and we think it's bigger than what it is. But when you go out to the real world and working class people, that's not the top concern of their life. So for us, we were to get weighed down in the same trap everyone else is in right now, where they put identity over politics, over philosophy, over economics, over everything. Thus, nothing gets done and we're at each other's throats constantly while the people with power just maintain that power and feed into the identity politics. So we made a conscious decision that we were going to separate ourselves from the norm of all modern politics. Right and left is all identity right now, and not put any identity in there and build a platform based on the merit of people. Like how far you go in society is going to depend on how far you want to go and are willing to go. Instead of, this race gets this race gets this, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, especially if you're pushing an idea of a unified country, under a type of nationalism. And that type of mentality might have been possible with a homogenous society. But in America, you don't really have that. And most of the stuff with racial politics in the United States anyways, it's mostly just been pushed to create internal conflicts. There's actually a book on it called White Trash if people want to check it out.
I'm currently reading that.
It's a pretty good analysis of how it was used.
Yeah, I'm currently reading
Victoria McKinney, who you guys had on before, she even talked about that. A lot of people kind of got triggered when she said that the racial divides don't exist. And obviously she shouldn't mean the biological stuff, but she means like in the sense of like social relations where people are actually actively fighting with each other. So that's something that's actively encouraged. And even when these people who engage like in identity politics talk about, say, philosophy or economics, it's bogged down in how it benefits what identity group. And so it's just more about perpetuating the identity politics concept and not actually talking about how it really benefits people, really.
That's what's frustrating about the whole third position scene online is it's been dumbed down to that. I mean, the whole point of starting the Cultured Thug channel was to explain and educate on what third position was, the philosophy, the history, the people. And then it's back to what Hollywood promoted it at. Hollywood promotes third position, fascism, whatever, as racist authoritarianism. And then you see all these people go right into that category and they self-identify as that. And then I see these, quote unquote third positionists, and it's white this, white that, white this. It's like, well, where is the politics? Where's the philosophy? How are you going to win people over? That method has been used for a very long time now and has gotten nowhere. But still, that trumps the politics now. That's why we purposefully avoided that, didn't want to get caught in that, because as soon as you put identity over the politics, that's what's going to dominate your politics, no matter what. So, and we lose sight of the reason why I'm a third positionist and had openly been for a long time in this country that's so hostile, to third position and fascism and all that, because I see the merit in the philosophy. I see the truth in it. I see how it can work, especially even in a country like this, like you're saying, Zoltanous. It's not a nation in the classical sense, right? I've always looked at America as more as like an empire structure. I always equate it to the Roman Empire or the Ottoman Empire. It's like we have a large landmass with a lot of different people, race, religion, regionalism, class, all of these things. And to get all of these to work together, because that is the reality we're born into, we're going to have to deal with America for what it is. And we should all want it to be a better place for us all. But you have to deal with all those kind of different groups and interests and find a way to not this, we're going to all bland each other out, because that never works. But how do we maintain ourselves, but also work together for the betterment of everyone else? So our focus is more on that, is making that understanding. Yeah, everyone understands people are different from the South and the North, white and black, Muslim, Christian. Everyone gets that. So we understand that exists, and that's fine that exists. But now how do we get this thing to work without killing each other through bullets or sperm?
Bullets or sperm. It makes me laugh every time I hear it.
And people forget that most third positionist movements historically have not been racial. They just happen to live in nations that were mostly homogenous. I would say that their main focus was on unifying the nation, not necessarily on racial politics.
Well, even the A. James Gregor, like I talked with a guy who talked about racial stuff. Like he was big like on the Gunther's like Nordicism, but like Gregor, if you read his essay like on race when he looked in Germany during the 1930s, it was the biological like racism, quote unquote, was actually heavily underplayed by Gregor. Instead, he emphasizes Grass, who was pushing like Aryan, which was like more of a metaphysical thing for making a noble people or a noble race through eugenic processes, which could apply to any group of people. And what you see with like American identity politics is it's more about like hatred, and it borderlines into actual supremacy, where they're wanting to actually exterminate other groups of people or hurt other groups of people. And it's a perpetual cycle. And the problem with like a lot of the white nationalists when they engage in that is a lot of it's historically inaccurate, because a lot of the times the ethnicities that some of these people might be, say Irish, were targeted by this type of mentality. So it doesn't really make sense to me personally.
Well, I think it's not understanding that. And like the whole term white is a whitewashing of so many different ethnicities, right? So that this new identity of, the white American comes about through the mixing of all these. So first there's some kind of, destruction of what was natural there and something that America created. But yeah, there was always like a stepping or process of getting, becoming legally white in this country. And it used to be only certain whites who owned a certain amount of land and had certain wealth were legally white, right? And then slowly but surely you'd get the poorer whites in there, then the women, the blacks, then whoever else came to America. Everyone's now like quote unquote legally white. Everyone has the same on paper, right? Everyone has the same opportunity by the law in this country. But there was a whole, a whole, what do you say, like step by step in this country that people were garnering rights. And most people don't know that, or at least the history of it, or they say, oh, this is just left wing, blah, blah, blah. So that was the history of this country. So I think that's part of the reason why, like my personal beliefs on why white nationalism was always a failure is because it was always this weird egalitarian thing that was, no matter how much they say it's about, we just want to love ourselves. It is always at the detriment of someone else. It always speaking about someone else, speaking down on other people. And you create this thing where you attract like a lot of whites that are not really of like quality character to this thing, because it gives them this thing. I was born better for what I was born, right? So it's an identity politics that certain people need to, instead of like who I am and what have I accomplished in this life defines me, it was like, no, what I was born defines me. And so
what my ancestors have accomplished, not myself.
Yeah. And especially that. And then in most cases, not even your ancestors, right? There's not some millions of people related to Beethoven.
Yeah.
One thing I'm like sure you were saying before with immigration, like different groups of Europeans came over in waves, and the latest group wasn't considered white or part of America or even necessarily European.
Well,
they were looked down upon.
You would probably find this interesting, but in the original like naturalization immigration policies, like it was specifically only towards like Western Europeans, and they considered say people who were like Jewish to be white. And like there was even a push during the colony period to make Hebrew the official language in the United States. And most of
I didn't hear that. That's crazy.
I have an article I can send to you over.
Yeah, it makes sense because most of the people that were coming here at the time, at least settling in the English colonies, were Puritans. And puritanical Christians are known for like interpreting in the Bible Israel as the church, and like calling a lot of their own cities like the shining city on the hill in a similar way to Jerusalem. Is
kind of like early evangelicals, or even like it's probably not completely accurate, but it's kind of a lot of the ideas go to them. But like the country itself, like most of American history has been large, like landowning, like aristocracy that have had kind of like a chokehold on the country itself since its inception. These are the people who actually wanted the American Revolution. And these are the people who also looked down upon like other different European groups. And these are the same people that are still in power today. Like if you look at most of the people who've had political power, like in the presidency, most of them are actually related to each other, which is just like something that's like really extremely bizarre that a lot of people don't know.
That is bizarre.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing that Culture Thug, that you point out that white also has like a very short history comparatively to the traditional identities, because most people, when they came to the United States, they didn't identify as white, right? That was a designation given to them. Instead, they would identify as, English, German, Irish. Yeah.
This idea of whiteness is only like 50 years old.
Yeah, but this is probably a good gateway conversation into actually the economic reforms that you guys are actually putting forward, because because a lot of these ideas were put out by people who still have a chokehold on the country and are still encouraging like these identity politics concepts to keep making the people fight each other in the first place, just like class divisions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But class isn't even a conversation anymore. That's how much identity has taken over the political stage, and it's low hanging fruit. Everyone gets emotional about it. You could sit on the internet and watch rage porn every day on some of these Telegram channels. And of course, it's just going to feed that anger. And once again, you're just at the throat of other citizens in this country while the people in power are doing this on purpose. Now there is no conversation on class. Now there is no mainstream conversation on what the banks are doing, what the Fed is doing, what these big corporations are doing. Nothing. It's like we have no control or not even a voice to speak to these people or to get the Americans all focused on the people who hold the power. It's like if everything's going wrong in this country, well, whose fault is it? Obviously, the people at the top. And we're not even there. We're too busy at each other's throats now about identity and now even like sex. They've broken down the identity so much it's beyond race and religion. Everything. It's even down to sex now. They've been able to make everything an identity war. And like I said, people keep feeding into that. And we're not going to win like that. We are not going to win like that. So it's a hard thing for people to get out of, especially the internet and alt-right. I get it, right? I've spent all my content making career like in this bubble and always hearing the big critique was I wasn't racial enough,
eventually right? All those guys that are critiquing you for not having like these racial views and just essentially just to be a bigot, really a lot of them are into race worship, and it's like the highest form of adultery and like narcissism. I'm not even a Christian, and like I can call it race adultery because like why should you like worship like a biological phenomenon like that? That just seems completely ridiculous to me.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that this is like almost like radical racial blindness, or would you call it something different?
What do you mean by that?
I think it's just misanthropic hatred because like,
no. When I
that's
say
what it seems to me.
When I say racial blindness, I mean the A3P platform in leaving out like the racial component from things or refusing to engage in identitarianism is just embracing like a form of like racial blindness. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, or
I wouldn't say that it's complete racial blindness, but it's not focusing on that.
What we say is how do you deal with the racial issues? You deal with all the issues we talk about in our platform first. You provide that.
I think you have to look at it like on prior conversations, like addressing this. Like you have glasses and like you have different liquids in them, and like you could say like the different colored liquid is like the different characteristics of the nation, and the glass might be the race. But America, if you look at America as it is, all you see is an empty glass. It doesn't have the characteristics of a nation, but it does have like these like racial political infightings. You can construct a like new racial concept. It doesn't necessarily need to be biological. It can be like something that focuses on like in a cultural metaphysical identity, which is what you see with like the Hispanic people, what they push, like Hispanista identity. And these are different ways to look at it. You even have traditionalists interpretations of this, like with Dugan, and it's more focusing on the religious identity that forms the nation. It's not like race. Like race is just like one small phenomenon. You can kind of call it icing on a cake. It's already there, but if you don't always need icing.
Yeah, and more so to the point, I firmly believe that by focusing on identity, you're not going to help your identity. So that's been my whole critique of like when I was a white nationalist years ago. That when I got out of it, realizing, like I said, through these holes in the philosophy of you're not going to save white people by going white people, and then doing all the stuff that the alt-right and the white nationalists have been doing, right? That's not going to win any security for white people. So the platform has a racial blindness to it, right? But at the same time, the platform is going to be what enhances white people, black people, brown people, yellow people, purple people, all kinds of people, whoever buys into the system and then adheres to the state, then everyone benefits from that. When you take away the narrative, though, of oppressors and oppressor race, when you take that narrative away, no one's going to buy into it because everyone knows your healthcare is taken care of, your education is taken care of, things are affordable now for you, housing, cars, etc. So when you have all the material opportunity now and the backing of the state, there's no excuse for living in a slum or for high crime. And then you have a people that's willing to destroy that as well now. If people have bought into a strong state, they'll have no problem dealing with the underlings of society. You can't get there. You can't get people's mentality there with, either going black first, white first, or, whatever trope people are caught in now with their identity politics. It's like you have to deal with the situation of the nation. Then you have your freedom of association. Then you have people allowed to be people, right? But everyone's invested into the system and everyone's getting back from the system as well. I think that's the best way us in America are going to deal with all of our racial strife, all of our religious strife, and everything else is first creating and backing a strong state that's going to back the people and give the people true opportunity and a reason too. What's reason for existence now as a collective? Just consume. That's it. Work a job, consume, and then, play on the weekends and then repeat for your whole life. And for what? What do you gain out of that? A pension, hopefully. That there's nothing there.
Disappearing.
Which is disappearing, constantly. But so I even say, there's racial blindness there, but I'm saying too, that's the way you deal with all the racial disconnection we're having in this country right now is that way, and is not focusing on identity first.
I do have a question. I remember when you guys had Cynthia McKinney on, which was actually one of my favorite conversations you guys had with somebody. How receptive have you guys talked with anybody in her sphere of politics that's associated with her? Anybody like her?
No, just her.
Just her.
Just her.
Have you guys talked with any other I just say racial minority kind of like her?
Have we been? I don't think so.
We've been trying to reach out. No.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to reach out a lot to get on these bigger podcasts. It's not happening, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Well, there's something I wanted to say. So when they had the Occupy Wall Street movement, that's when the elites and the media and the politicians started to focus on identity politics because they don't want to talk about economics.
Well, Jimmy Dore on his show, he has a graph that shows you that Black Lives Matter wasn't a thing till the later period of Occupy Wall Street. And that's when they stopped talking about it. Then it all became identity politics.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Once again, we took our eyes off the enemy and we put them on each other. It's we need to stay focused on them.
And all these white nationalists, or I should say white supremacists, because there's a difference, have fallen for that same trap. They've fallen for the same thing that BLM supporters have.
Yeah.
So
it's just supremacy one way or the other.
Yeah.
One question I have is, does A3P support a particular religion, or is it against the politicization of religion?
Secular.
Yeah, secular.
Okay.
Church and state separate.
At the core of all of this is trying to unify as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. And if we bring religion into it, it doesn't do that.
Once again, identity. There's no identity.
Just another identity.
Yeah, exactly. There's only we created a populist platform that's very radical in its economics and very radical in its nationalism. So we're obviously going to catch fire from both sides because of that, but we're also going to get people coming to us because of that as well.
Interestingly enough, I have sent that platform to people on different Discord chats or Telegram chats, people who don't really know who I am, people who don't really know who you guys are, in left-wing servers or more, I guess you could say nationalistic populist servers. They don't really know what the third position is. And it's actually largely positive looking at it. But as soon as they look at the blog and stuff, and they start seeing that the books that you guys have, they start freaking out.
Yeah,
it's always kind of funny though to watch it. Not gonna lie.
They're gonna so it's so new to them that of course that's going to freak them out. But I believe they'll get more and more used to that because this platform was built off of a third position philosophy, right? So it's core to it. It's we can't separate the reality of what inspired these kinds of thoughts of blending economics and nationalism together. And so it's we're never going to be able to get away from that, nor should we want to, but people are just going to have to start understanding it's not this, devil that it's been created out to be, and it's not.
They'll get over it.
Well,
They will get over
some
it,
of them will, but there's also going to be a couple of them that are just going to double down.
Well, there'll be a lot of them. Yeah.
And
Propaganda
moralize like Moppin or like Infrared or like these other like Shoe on Head who likes Huey Long, but they don't like the quote unquote fascist association.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, people like them are probably more caught up in history than need to be, and need to like focus.
It's not even a good accurate view of history. Just a
no, it's not. Yeah, well, that's obvious in speaking to any of these people. Like your discussion with Infrared, like mine with Moppin, they really don't know a damn thing about what they hate. Right? They really don't know anything about third position. They haven't read any Gentile. They haven't read probably any Sorrell, to be honest. And so they're really undereducated on what they hate. So of course they're going to whitewash history and, dumb it down to, fascism is capitalism in decay and tropes like that.
Well, this right here would probably be the good question then. So like, what's the like position on like banking? Like, what's your guys' view on banking? Because a lot of them like to bitch about like, say, international finance. What's your guys' views on international finance?
We're going to nationalize the banks.
Yeah. We're going to get rid of the Fed, nationalize the banks, make local banks in each state, and all of that be run through the state itself. No one but the state should control the money supply. It's lunacy that we give it to private banks.
These international bankers
money supply.
control our government, and if they control our monetary supply, they control everything. Nothing else. That's probably one of the most important things in our platform.
Well, even something I actually found like the other day when I was talking with Pacifist, and it was in a book. It's in German, so I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it, as I'd probably butcher it really bad. But it had a list of every bank in Europe on which one should be targeted that were connected to like international money supply, like Wall Street and London. And this was drafted by the Germans and the Italians. These were targets that they were going after during World War II.
Well, that's the only. That was the war against banks, really. I mean, if you want to,
that's what that war was about.
Yeah, if you want to break it down, in World War II, it was the war against banks, and the banks won. And that's the same thing, happens to people like Gaddafi. That's the same things that, everyone on our hit list now are people that are warring against the international finance system and are going against it.
So,
and
like,
they don't have a central
lo and behold,
bank.
they're our enemies. Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
So obviously, like these like international like financier type people who like run the Fed or most of these things like Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, just like whatever you can think of, like any of these like global capitalistic institutions.
Goldman Sachs, let me interrupt real fast. Goldman Sachs just got a break from our Supreme Court, let them off from all the shady shit they were doing in 2008. Once again, Supreme Court's another thing that needs to be done away with. This is ridiculous. 9 people can interpret any law they want and make it a fact. Yeah, my ass. That's crazy. And I'm sorry, I just read that today.
It shouldn't be on the bench for life anyways. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the whole, we're a nation of laws. No, we're not. We're a nation of interpretation of law, and whoever, gets it passed, that becomes the law. So
whoever has the most money makes the laws.
As we're seeing with Goldman Sachs, getting away with what they did. I mean, they were giving loans and betting against those loans at the same time. I mean, this is... It's corrupt as hell, and any state authority that was doing stuff like that, they'd be charged with treason right away. But these corporations keep getting away with it.
Well, did you hear? So, like when we're talking about like these international finance people like instigating problems, obviously, like I know you guys are pretty much like on the anti-war stuff, not wanting to get involved with like these wars for like the Israel lobby or like any like the blood oil or like the globalization that you see with like things like the blood diamond trade. I already know you guys are against that, but I don't really know if you heard about this. Did you guys hear about how like the U.S. government just like, I think it was today, just basically seized all kinds of websites and like that were associated
press
with like
TV.
Yeah. For like Iran, Palestine, Yemen, Iraq.
Yeah, business as usual. I mean, welcome Press TV to Culture Thug's life. I mean, yeah, business as usual. They ban whoever they want to, and so what? What are you going to do about it? Build your own internet, right?
There's even like with North Korea recently, like Kim gave a speech talking about like they're going to have a food shortage. Like it is nothing they can do about it. And like the UN and the United States position was just to say, go fuck yourself, have more sanctions. And like they're both saying it's going to create a famine, and they're like, go fuck yourself.
That's what do you think's creating the famine? Our sanctions to begin with. Yeah. We do this to everyone.
Sanctions are war without bullets.
Yep. 100%.
Like they've been doing that to Syria for like years now. And it's actually completely like wrecked the economy in Syria.
Well, it's what we did to Iraq too. And then, what part of their strategy is they want to get the people to hate the state. They wanted to get the people to hate the people in power because things are so bad. So they don't mind starving them as long as they can, spark a revolution in their country that's going to help international finances aims. Yeah, once again, we all know they're hypocrites and liars. They talk about how much they care about people on one hand. On the other hand, you see by their actions what they're really doing. They're starving people, bombing weddings, bombing children's. Now we're going to have drones that don't even have human controllers on them making decisions on who to bomb. So you can imagine how many more innocent people are going to start getting killed then. And once again, but they'll sit here, and like, oh, how much it's a, human's right issue for a man to go into a woman's bathroom, right? And they'll act like this is a moral issue.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
They also want to moralize so they can paint transgender flags on bombs they can drop on Middle Eastern countries. They literally did that too.
Yeah, when memes become real life, dude. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up.
I found it more like this is.
They're waging psychological warfare on the American population and on the Western population in general.
Yeah.
Besides like putting transgender and like BLM stuff on like bombs in the Middle East, did you see that Hamas put an anime girl on a missile they shot at Tel Aviv?
I guess everyone's getting into it. Look up like
to do it.
Look up kids like suicide rates now. It's like they're up, especially girls, up 50%.
It's like the highest it's ever been recently.
This is not a country or people that cares about their citizens, man. This stuff wouldn't be happening. You wouldn't have homeless people in all these cities all over the place, right?
What is the New Frontier's position on the homeless situation? Because it's actually somewhat of a epidemic, like especially in places like California.
Well, I mean, it's multi-layered, right? Because you have all kinds of different homeless people. First, mental health facilities, like a big bringing back of the mental health facilities. A lot of these people should be housed and treated.
You can thank Reagan for getting rid of that crap.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
It's part of the reason why American populations got increased mental illnesses too, and like birth deformities is because of him.
On top of that, nobody feels safe going out anymore. I mean, I talk to parents at work, and like they'll say stuff like, I never let my kid leave the house without me knowing exactly where he's going all the time. And I always give them phones so that, they can always call me in case anything goes wrong. It's like, well, it's like the kid, like it used to be. And I'm sure everyone else has heard this before, especially like Culture Thug and Bill, because you guys are no doubt like, in your 30s or maybe in your 40s, that, your mom would have you come back home when the street lights went out.
Oh, yeah.
But I never had that. I never had that. And I'm 20 and I'm 26. I never had that. Like I was basically in the house 24/7. And that was a story of almost every other kid I knew.
My kids don't have that now. I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old, and they don't have that. We have to go to a park. We have to go drive to a park, and then they don't know anyone there. So they either randomly play with some kids or not. But yeah, they've wiped all of that out. But real fast, back to the homeless before I forget. So, okay, of course, mental health institutions, but people who have a competent, mental faculty there, you offer, and we want to do this with ex-convicts as well. People getting out of prison that don't have a house.
Is it like a full employment scheme?
No, yeah. Transitional housing, training programs to get them back in the work sector, out of the transitional housing once they're working and once they can buy a place on their own or pay rent on a place on their own. But programs like this aggressively attacking the homeless problem, like I said, it's multi-layered. It goes from, medical help to people, and then just help people getting off drugs, getting into a house, getting schooled in some kind of education, some kind of trade to get into the workforce and produce. So it's attacking it like this would, I believe, solve it mainly to where you're not seeing many homeless people around anymore. But we can't even do that. We keep throwing money at this problem and we never have a solution for it. The homeless just gets more and more.
Well, one thing I can think of is like, besides like hiring illegals and like hurting like the employment situation that way, you also have a lot of these companies that just engage straight up with like outsourcing. And I know you guys are like for protectionism, but like one of the other big problems too is like a lot of these companies that do this stuff, they get like really low taxes. Like Trump cut the taxes a lot, and like I know in the United States, I think that like the highest taxes ever been was like up in the like 70s. 70%. I might be wrong. Like, what's your guys' views like on taxes when it comes to like corporations or like a lot of these big like monopolies?
Well, first, the big monopolies shouldn't exist, first off. So you have to get rid of the monopolies. There should be no individual or no corporation that is stronger than the state or has more reach and power and influence than the state itself. So that'd be the first thing, is you get rid of that. But we've agreed on a progressive tax bracket to where, depending on where they fit on that, is how much they'll get taxed. And of course, with protectionism, good luck hiring an illegal or outsourcing, because once again, that's treasonous. We view that.
We're going to find them.
Yeah.
And if they keep doing it, we're going to jail them. And I think we settled on a corporate tax rate of 25%. Right now it's 15. Trump lowered it.
I would actually recommend like I know I'm not in the group, but I would recommend shooting it up to like at least 40%, because that's usually what you see some of like the more left oriented populists push, like Sanders. And the reason why like they push that stuff is because they get higher and higher profits year per year. And a lot of it's not even like earned through labor. It's just through like money laundering or doing these like illegal outsourcing schemes.
Yeah, and on top of that, the percentage, I guess that's going to be something that materializes.
Jeff Bezos made like record profit.
Yeah, we won't know exactly. And they always talk about closing tax loopholes for these corporations, and they never do anything. That's a big part of this. There's a lot of corporations that pay very little to some pay zero.
Nothing.
Some pay nothing.
Would you consider breaking up these companies for non-compliance?
Oh yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
There should be no Amazon. There should be no Walmart. These things, shouldn't be existing.
Like the way, like, say, like older third positionist movements usually dealt with like the companies that were like this big, is they were either broken apart completely, and when they were broken apart completely, they were sold off to different people, or it would just be nationalized straight up. Or if it was privatized and it was still kept as a monopoly, it would just be given to somebody who was high ranking in the party. And the party was the state. So it's kind of like it's an extension of the state. So it's going to listen to the state anyways, which is, you have that like in modern China, and like at the person in charge of the company doesn't listen, they usually end up getting beheaded or something.
Yeah. I mean, this is an example. So like pharmaceutical companies are selling like fentanyl to get people addicted.
Like the Sacklers too.
Yeah, we'll find them at first, and if they don't listen and they keep doing what they're doing, we'll start taking a percentage of their company. We don't want to nationalize the whole thing, because there's things that they can do because of profit that allow them to invent things that we couldn't do if it was nationalized necessarily. But eventually, like if they keep fucking up, we'll just nationalize the whole thing.
Well, in Singapore, like one thing they do, even though most of their economy is private, almost all of their businesses are like have to be members of like a national trade union. And if they don't follow the labor contracts with the trade union, they get in trouble. And anything that's like a bigger company that you could probably describe as approaching monopolistic, or like a household brand that's pretty common, the state has 25% stockholder ownership, so they have a say in what the company can and can't do to a degree. So it actually gives them a bit of control. And like in Singapore, the government there, it owns like 95% of all land, and it rents it out to people who use it. So it acts as like a giant renter, which gives them indirect control of everything that's private.
that's a bit too far, but yeah, I mean,
they're considered very
small
market
landmass too.
Yeah, they're like a
it's very
city.
small.
yeah, it is a small landmass. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like a city state, and like the whole, even though like they have a lot of government interference, they function like the government functions like a corporation itself. So it's doing everything for profit, anyways, which is why a lot of business does business there.
What's the difference between that and property taxes? Because it seems here that property taxes.
They don't have property taxes in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
They have.
What would property taxes be like in the A3P platform?
That's interesting.
We haven't talked about that.
Well, one thing I could think of is like say Microsoft with like Bill Gates. Bill Gates owns a lot of fucking land, and he's been consolidating a lot of like agricultural land.
Yep.
Yeah. And he plays like a flat property tax on it through like some of the loopholes, and he like pays almost nothing on it, and it's choking out a lot of like smaller businesses. Like, how would you like approach that?
It's because he has it. What is it? I forgot what it's called, but it's categorized as agricultural, and you don't pay hardly any property taxes on it. That's why.
So like, how would you guys approach it?
Well, see, that's the problem. That is like it's a good intention, right? Because it's trying to give break to farmers, but then you have someone like a Bill Gates that takes advantage of that and knows the loopholes, has the lawyers, knows how to do it. So you have someone taking advantage of something that's supposed to be good for the little farmer. Is like that's who that's supposed to be intended for, or that's supposed to benefit. So I think you would have to move in and see. I don't know if you make a law saying you can't buy, this much land at one time, or one person or one corporation, like whether you control that or whether you just go after the people manipulating the system. And
one thing I could think of is like when it comes to food stuff, like when it comes to like food stuff production, if it's like on a larger scale, you could probably look into this, making it simply a government initiative. Whereas like if it's if it's like individual farming, smaller farming, you can probably push it towards like small scale, like homesteading, agricultural, supporting those type of farmers. And that would probably be a good way of getting around these like bigger monopolistic people like Bill Gates that are doing that.
Or even
we wouldn't allow somebody like Bill Gates to own that much land. And maybe once farmers reach a certain size, they don't get those tax incentives anymore because they don't need them.
Well, I can think of this too, is like in California, like I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of like all of like the drought problems, the like water issues that they've been having for years, right?
Yeah.
Well, like a lot of that's because you have like these big ass like farming monopolies that take all the water and they shift it out towards the agriculture, and they purposely hog all of it. They don't let it go towards the like cities or the urban areas. And it ends up with like huge scale like water shortages. And a lot of these like farming agricultural areas over there do it intentionally because they're able to price gouge the price of like what water is. And it's just frankly ridiculous. And like the United States government hasn't done anything about it for years.
Yeah, because the state is weak. I mean, we have a weak state. As oppressive as it is to some people, it is a weak state because, it has no control over the corporation. It has no control over. All the politicians are funded by many of these organizations and corporations. So they serve them when they get in there. So, of course, when you have a weak state, which once again is our argument for the strong state, where a corporation or Bill Gates is not stronger than the state or more powerful, you fix these problems. But we don't have that. So, they're just going to make profits. It's like that's their only concern, profit, why they call themselves humanitarians.
So speaking of property taxes and also a strong state, when you say strong state, do you mean a strong federal government or central government? Because one thing I'm curious about, and this also relates to taxes as well, like say in Ohio, you have not only the federal tax that applies to them, but you have the state tax, and in some of the major cities, you have a city tax as well. And then versus Texas, whereas you'll have a city that has no state tax and it has no city tax, and then it just has the federal tax.
Well, that's called tax simplification in Germany. Like during the Weimar Republic, one of the problems they had over there is that you had different taxes by by gal, by local principality. And it would scale all the way up from like the smallest form of government all the way up to like the actual like federal bureaucracy. And it just created all kinds of like problems of overtaxing people. So like one of the big things that like Hitler pushed was like simplification of the tax policy and to encourage savings and consumer spending. And the problem you have in the United States is because of the state and the federal structure is you don't have a simplified tax system or a simplified like education system. And what it does is it leads to all kinds of inconsistency, and it doesn't lead to saving or consumption spending. It does, however, lead to things like impulsive spending or people living like paycheck to paycheck.
To answer Anon's question, I think every tax would have to go through the state, would have to go through the federal government. That you wouldn't have Texas or Ohio doing something different. Everything would come through the federal government.
Is that your guys' view on education too?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
would homeschooling be?
Yeah, homeschooling. Yeah, all that would
Be
exist.
encouraged. Yeah, I think that's good.
Huh,
Yes.
that's
It's
interesting
not,
because I would say homeschooling is, well, it's usually used by groups that don't want to conform with what the system has to say.
mm-hmm. And so there is the hope is the quality of the schools. Parents aren't going to need or want to homeschool.
They wouldn't want
The reason why homeschooling is such a thing in the United States right now is because people don't want their kids going to school and questioning what gender they are.
Well,
Religious, there's religious groups too that do a lot of homeschooling. But yeah, I don't think that's a detrimental thing to where it's going to ferment like revolution, I guess, against the government if you have some people getting homeschooled. But I think there would be a lot less. I have confidence that we can create an educational system that truly educates people and gives all the nuances of history and philosophy and politics and everything else. And instead of like this dumbed down education we have now, once again,
and that takes time. That would take decades.
Yeah, you'd have to create that. But yeah, I think that's and then universities as well. Once again, like there is, we believe in no one should have to pay and go in debt to get an education. We should encourage people like to be them best selves because they contribute to the nation at their best rate when they're their best selves. So we always found it crazy, like you're sending your own kids into debt for seeking an education.
Well, that's the way that the American system is. Like everyone is, they're always trying to get a certain amount of debt on you. I mean, whether it's through going to college, getting an auto loan, or and by the way,
this is a modern phenomenon. Like prior, we used to have like anti-usury laws. Like a lot of this really starts with like Bernays when his like ideas like psychoanalysis got more ingrained with the consumer culture of America.
Yeah, part of the incentive for bringing in so many migrants from other countries is because they get really taken in by this materialism. And so like they become like compulsive spenders and therefore are more likely to get in debt. So it's more especially for the migrants, it's to get extremely cheap labor and pin a ton of debts on their heads.
Mm-hmm. With
the same thing with college education. Yeah, not as many people would be going to college. People would be getting degrees that the nation needed and where we had deficiencies in unemployment, and we were trying to fill in those gaps. We wouldn't have all these stupid degrees that people are getting right now that they don't even use. So we could afford that. Yeah, because there's too many people going to college right now. And we talk about in the platform, we want to focus more on trade schools and getting people educated in blue collar jobs, not just white collar jobs.
What's some of the ideas for programs on how to make the youth better in America? Is like you have things like obesity, then you also have them teaching anti-social values in school systems where they're basically teaching like racial divisions, like anti-masculine, anti-feminine ideology.
And let me pin something onto that as well, but like the access to junk food, processed food, and also the free access to internet, which seems to be extremely detrimental to the health of the youth.
So a lot of those things, right, specifically like access to fast food and all of this, ideally, I mean, you would want to wipe out like 80% of the fast food joints in this country because we don't need to eat that much. I don't know where we got in our minds that we have to eat every 4 hours or something and trash food at that. But that's not something that's not something that you could put on the platform, because people will be freaked out. It's like, God, that's way too much state control. Now they're going to decide what we can eat and blah, blah, blah. So you try to build that culture around it first to where it becomes more acceptable. And
I could think of Japan.
It would be through education, not reprimanding people or
I could think of Japan.
Things mandatory.
Oh, I don't think that you should reprimand people. I think that the companies that support this stuff, like simply like zone junk food joints out of existence. Like make taxes so unbearable for them that they can't function.
Well,
that's one thing I was going to mention before when we were talking about homelessness. So a lot of this stuff, and we can do it with junk food as well. We're going to charge these corporations and the people that purchase it a vice tax, and then we take all that money and put it into mental illness and to fight obesity and all these different things, so it funds itself.
Well, I can think of like McDonald's, for example. Like it's been known for years, like they used to engage like in predatory marketing towards children to get them addicted to fast food. And nowadays they're like really big on the millennial cafe culture
and minorities too. Oh, but they cash in on minorities all the time.
Oh, there's way more McDonald's in like minority or low income areas.
Well, like in Japan, for example, like the way they deal with like fast food, like you don't really see like their fast food isn't like a McDonald's or a KFC. It's like they have like these like little convenience stores you go into, and it has like prepaid meals that are healthy. And it's just like their normal diet. And then it's also got a lot of teas and stuff like that, waters, fruit drinks. It doesn't really have any sodas. And that's normally what they actually eat day per day per day. A lot of these people work in these bit like corporate buildings. So it's like not a good lifestyle. They have a healthier diet. And
ours is the worst in the world. I mean, what we've been doing, look at the obesity. How much it's spiked up in the last 40 years.
60%. It's crazy.
Like how, like nuts. Besides, like how would you guys like address that with like youth, for example? Like you do have like a big correlation of youth and not being fit, plus like those antisocial values I was talking about.
So in the health, culture, and welfare part of the platform, we start right off with that, with creating youth programs designed to encourage personal responsibility, civic vigilance, public virtue, right? So creating these, you could call them like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts again, bringing these nationalized youth groups back to where it trains youth to be physically healthy, gets them mentally healthy and not wanting to be fat. Like once again, bring back fat shaming, right? Make fat something that you don't want to be, right? And then use it as like, this is sloth, this is laziness, this is gluttony, right? This is your own weakness that makes you this way or makes you want to eat all of these things. So putting that back into education with children first off, and then of course upping the standards of our physical education in schools. I mean, personally, I think every, I might be extreme on this or by myself on this, but I think every school should have Brazilian jiu-jitsu and boxing as their physical education. I think that not only makes healthy boys and girls, but they learn to respect each other because they're sharing struggle on the mats with each other or in the ring with each other. And that builds a bond. If anyone trains those arts, they see like how positive it is for people that get involved in it. Yeah. And so I think instead of like now I see like they used to just run around, in a lap, right? And that'd be their physical education.
When I was in high school, like if you're like in gym class, like some of the kids would just be standing around like doing nothing.
Dude, they walk in circles. So they walk like cattle in circles now. They don't even run, right? So I drive by. There's a middle school by my house. Every time I drive by it, they're on PE. You see them all just walking in this big circle, all slow, talking with each other. And that's their physical education. It's like, no wonder look what they're becoming. So once again, just like with the homeless, just like with the inmates and everyone else, going to society, is being aggressive and hands-on with these things and then getting the proper message out there and the proper training to the kids. I mean, we advocate gun classes for kids to learn how to properly, use a gun, be trained in it. And so before you can even own a gun, being trained in it, it's crazy to me. It's like you could just buy a gun and not even know how to work it. But, a car, you have to take a test for, you have to study for, and you have to go through all that just to get your driver's license. Same with the gun, and start that young. Get them learning and understanding weapons at a young age, to where they will be responsible gun owners, right? There won't be no accidental deaths or anything like that.
Well,
so
if all this
being
stuff
aggressive,
with the youth,
basically.
Yeah, all this stuff with the youth. What's the stance on the internet? Because I know like you have like a lot of them are basically just like functioning as utilities or monopolies at this point. But
internet is a corrupting force.
Yeah, I've noticed if like a lot of like children or like younger people and they're on the internet, like I don't know if you guys noticed it, but a lot of people, even in like dissident radical politics, it seems like a lot of them, especially on Discord, end up getting groomed and being trans or gay. It's kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, it's not only that, but because of like the free access to pornography, like any kid, like I don't know if this is the same story for when you guys were younger too, but like especially like kids in my generation, back in like the early 2000s when everybody had a desktop computer, like everybody got access to the internet and like everybody discovered porn at like 13, 14, 12. And the statistics bear that out too. And that does like fundamentally change kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
the overexposure too turns it gay.
yeah. So, and then there's also, I know I've been hearing that a lot lately, and apparently there's studies even showing that, you have to, I mean, obviously if first the children have a more active lifestyle, and they're involved with youth groups and things that are getting them out the house, that's a good thing. But they're always going to have the time to get onto the internet. So yes, you have to heavily restrict, especially things like pornography online, and that's going after these people. Can
ideally,
you wipe it out?
Ideally, pornography would just be flat out banned, but I don't know if that'd be possible. If
that's not possible. Yeah, it's not. But what you can do is limit it. And I remember when I grew up, though, it was you'd go to the video store. When someone would go to the video store to rent like a porno tape, they would wear a hat, trench coat, be looking down,
behind the curtain.
Go behind the curtain, get it. So it was a shameful thing. Now it's like porn's everywhere. It's a prideful thing. It's open. So once again, it's changing the culture on that, making it a shameful thing.
Well, I can think of in America. Like in America, like obviously, like you just can't flat out ban it. It's going to freak people out. But like,
and you'll make a black market anyways.
Issue.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Like you just have the issue of like, say, like things like Pornhub or like XX and X, for example. You have all kinds of sex.
Keep naming them Zoltanous. Go on.
Those, I mean, the porn sites should be as hard to access as it is hard to get access.
Well, they're
to
not regulated. They're not regulated. Like you literally just find it and like watch free shit that like some weirdo like in fucking Peru can upload in his basement with like
give them a legal avenue. Yeah, give them a legal avenue. Say like they can only have it on the internet, but you have to provide a license and also
you need
like
a way
something.
Yeah, you need a way for like people to verify their actual age to actually
we can do actual age verification. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, you literally just make an account or
you limit it first off.
That pops up.
Yeah, I would say you limit like how much porn could take up internet space. First off, you put a percentage on that and say it doesn't go past this. So whatever companies are running that,
sex trafficking too.
Oh yeah, and that's a huge one. And then I imagine a lot of these girls that get into porn are some kind of sex trafficked in some way.
Oh. On Pornhub, like it was over 3,000 videos recently got deleted, and all of them were actual rape videos that were uploaded. Were like a woman was kidnapped, drugged, and then raped and put on Pornhub. And that's like crazy. Pornhub was being sued over it, and what they did is they deleted all of the videos and said they didn't exist, and the case got dropped.
Oh, see, that's
they basically
horrible.
Deleted every single video that was unverified.
Yeah, and they had them on there for years. Like it was on there for years before like the case got brought up. Like it was.
Yeah, they would just be put in prison. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. But yeah, you would have to limit it, and then it's like, how do you keep kids away from it? I think you would have to set up where it was only a pay system for it, and then people were charged with putting pornography out there that was not in the pay system. So force it back to like when I grew up, you'd have to pay to buy the magazine. You'd have to pay to buy the videotape. There was no way kids can go in there. And of course, you could always steal your dad's porn or whatever, right? I'm not saying everything's perfect. You're going to stop everything.
Some of these websites,
like access.
Well, some of these websites, their age verification is literally just a button popping up.
It's a joke. No, we would make people like insert their like driver's license number or something so that we can verify their age. Yeah.
Well, Social Security might be a bit too far, as it could be easy to get into.
But like a driver's license, and you could say, okay, well, somebody could get a fake driver's license, but that'll dramatically cut down on kids that are watching pornography.
You don't see many people getting those anyways.
As long as the access is not there to where, like you said, you could just type it in Google and it'll pop up there. As long as that access is not like that anymore, I think and once again, you have to attack this culturally. We have to go back to where this was more of a shameful thing than like a thing of pride now. And sex workers and all this crazy shit that's going on now. It's like changing the culture in that. Once again, you need to get the power of the state to start to do that. But
CT, I can tell you something funny. Like, besides all this, like, so basically Vox ran an article recently saying BlackRock isn't to blame for the housing market crash or bubble. And apparently the CEO, who's like the investor, like general of Vox, is actually on the board for BlackRock.
I think I saw that on your Telegram.
Yeah. What's the stance on the fake news that's basically pushing that stupid corporate bullshit?
Yeah, well, you would have to. So something like that already, you see, this company cannot be writing articles on this. So how do you deal with all this fake news, right? So you would obviously have a state news agency, but you couldn't get rid of the citizens press. You're always going to have that as well. You want a state news agency that you could trust. And then you're going to want all these other, citizen news agencies. I think limiting them first off too, and making a lot more localized news on top of like these national conglomerates that
you could probably do things like strengthening libel laws or making.
So I was going to say, you open them up to litigation.
Yeah, you can also make it illegal for these people who run press to be involved in, say, government or like a corporate entity.
So we advocate state-funded courts for libel laws, so the average citizen can, go sue a CNN and not have to worry about CNN having more money than them. Yeah. So that is one way to deal with them. But once again, like all monopolies, they need to be broken up. I mean, if you look at what 6, 7 parent companies, I think 6 parent companies, over 90% of everything we intake. No, that needs to be broken up. So when you do that, people like Vox, and here's another thing. I mean, because it ties in with this, we're against finance capitalism. We want to wipe that out. You shouldn't be able to bet on businesses failing, right? You shouldn't be able to profit off businesses in America failing. So it's wiping that out. It's that guy at Vox. He's not going to be on the board of anything like that or investing in any of that, because that's going to be gone. You're done betting on companies or betting against companies or, purposely underselling companies and things like this. Being aggressive with these people. And once again, you need a strong state for this, right? And they have no one over their head right now.
Well, these are the same type of people who would run articles calling you guys neo-Nazis or saying that I'm like affiliated with like satanic death cults.
Death cults and shit. Yeah. No, exactly. So guess what?
Smearing.
That's a lawsuit. Yeah. That's not only is it smearing, like it's so look, I doxed myself forever a long time ago. I'm a dummy, but you Google my name and I'm not getting a job anywhere when they look up my name because all the crazy shit that follows it. And it's like, well, this is mainly smears and attacks and it's ruining my livelihood too. So they should be held accountable for that. They should be taken to court by average citizens because of that.
It took me like a year to be able to get a job because of some of the articles they ran on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those were crazy. Yeah. All those satanic death cults and all that. But see, that's how, if you notice how they write these articles, if you look at the Business Insider article they did on us, it's like they start with, oh, this neo-Nazi, then they attach you to all weird shit that happens all over the world under white supremacism. And they're like, how the hell did we get tied to the mosque shooting in New Zealand? It's like, well, why the fuck is that even in the same article that we're talking to Cynthia McKinney?
Cynthia McKinney.
Dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, one time this happened to me, and they connected me to Dylan Roof, and it's like completely ridiculous.
You both have similar skin tone. No.
Well, yeah, like it just seems to be kind of the real phenomenon. You're just trying to do like it's like Red Scare politics, but in the case it's like the white nationalists. You probably didn't hear about it, but like today there was a leaked document that came out of the FBI where they were working with the U.S. Navy and what they consider political threats, and like obviously like they had white nationalism and like neo-Nazism in there, but like they also had anarchism and like socialists listed as domestic terror threats. And then you had The Atlantic running an article on it, basically bitching about it and talking to the ADO and how like socialists and communists and anarchists aren't real threats. It's only the neo-Nazis that are threats.
Well, they're right. Well, hold on. They're right about that. None of these commies are threats to this system at all. They're not even real communists around. Yeah.
They're not a threat to the system, but they do go around destroying a lot of property, a lot more than a white nationalist. He might have like one go retard mode and like shoot maybe like 100 people, like maybe like every couple of years, but that's far less than say like radical Islam or like retard anarchists going around and burning the country down for like an entire year.
I mean, look at Portland. Holy crap.
Yeah.
They've been terrorizing. If that was like white nationalists doing that, the military would be in there like breaking heads like in a moment. But
after a day.
What's your guys' stance actually on police and like criminality? Are you guys pro police reform or not?
Yeah, yes. 100% pro police reform. I think the training needs to be stepped up. I think who they allow to be police should be stepped up. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't have a 120-pound girl out there on the street trying to wrestle criminals down to the ground. I think their training in grappling arts needs to be like at least 6 months of wrestling and jiu-jitsu training for them, even through the academy before they become police. There's a lot that needs to be done with fixing what the police are right now. The standards are so low.
Do you think they should be moved from the control of the state level to only federal control?
I don't. That might be that might be too much central planning there. I think it's better in a state because every state is a little different. Something about America there, every state's a little different from each other in that sense. So, and it's more localized policing too. They know how to more locally deal with these situations. But the training should be federal, though. The training mandate should be federal.
As far as their training goes, do you guys think like police are actually like, besides like making sure their training is actually a little bit more professional, of course, don't you guys think they're a bit too militarized? Because a lot of them just walk around like in full on like military gear.
Oh yeah, they have been for a long time. A lot of them are ex-military.
Well, I can think of, for example, like when you had the criminal bill that was pushed in by Biden and some of the other Democrats that basically targeted like minority communities very heavily. And like we already know like those communities had heavy like criminality because of like economic issues and also cultural issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to be like really crazy, like IQ stuff, but most of it is the cultural stuff and some of the economic situations. And you also have all kinds of issues with like the homeless problems and drug addictions and all that stuff, even nowadays too, with like sacklers. But it seems like they purposely did that stuff to make it to where people are thrown into prison longer. So they make more profit through the private prison system. And they also wanted more militarized police so they could start pushing towards federal control to actually start cracking down on political dissidents and maybe in the long term. And they pushed like police reform, but it seems like as soon as they got in power, that was immediately thrown out the window immediately.
Well, it's like what the FBI was doing with the Muslim kids in the early aughts and like what they're trying to do with white nationalists right now. It's they create the problem so they can then push their solution that they always wanted there, right? So, yeah, this is obviously the same. So, yeah, you could talk about specifically the Black community and you can talk about all the problems there with the culture and what's going on with the broken families. And then, of course, the living standards and the wages and all of that. But you also have to factor in, it's a pretty known fact now, our government pushed drugs into those cities and they created the drug warfare in there and created the addiction there. So they can now militarize police, have all these prisons, not only private prisons, state prisons get a lot of money for each inmate they have in there. So the prison system is a revolving door. And like growing up in that system, if I didn't have a strong family support when I got out of prison, like most of these people in there don't, that there's no way I would survive. There's no way in hell I could
out of jail your whole life.
Yeah, my whole life. Exactly. And that's the cycle though. They create that because this another, once again, everything is profit here. And so that's another profit for them. And then now they get to, now we get to soup up our guards now because, I respect. Met and trained with a lot of people that are police officers, and they're all the individuals, are all great people. Usually, Christian people from big families, and has a moral sense is why they take the job. But at the same time, they're mercenaries, right? They'll do whatever the paycheck tells them to do. So even if they agree with everything you're saying, if your name's on the warrant, they're kicking your door in and taking you away from your children, right? So they created this whole thing, us versus them, and then we got to control this. They create the problems, then they manufacture the solutions that they always wanted to do, more power, more profit, and continue from there. So yeah, I think it's the same with the prison system. It's the same with the ghettos. Once again, you change these things, I think you get better, despite anyone's IQ or their background or anything else. If you give them a functional part in society and they feel respected and appreciated for that, and they know the state has their back, they become contributing members at whatever level they can achieve in life. They become a contributing member at that.
Well, even like the militarization of the police where they're targeting political dissidents, it seems like they purposely wanted to target minority communities so they could actually stoke more racial animosity. Because historically, you've always had the police being and minority groups being antagonistic towards each other, in the United States, especially during the civil rights era. And I don't like a lot of the civil rights leaders. I do respect Malcolm X, but it's aside the point. Is it seems like they wanted this militarization of the police to restoke a lot of the racial animosity and then direct it towards white people. So then you have racial identity politics being pushed more towards the forefront.
Oh yeah,
I think they use it against everybody. Yeah.
Well, now for sure. So now all those tactics they used on the brown and black people of this country, be they Muslims or blacks. Guess what, white folks? The chickens are coming home to roost now. Now it's all that. Now all that's being turned against the white working class.
Oh,
we're next in line.
Did you see what happened to this Puerto Rican couple the other night? A few nights ago. I think.
Yeah, horrible. Horrible. Yeah,
carjacking, both shot, execution style. Well, you had this dude on Twitter. It runs Democracy Defense Initiative. I believe he's one of those checkmark liberals, and he was saying they deserved it as he thought it was the Confederate flags and they deserved to get executed. And then he found out it was the Puerto Rican flag and deactivated his account. But he was literally saying they deserve to die for having a fucking flag on their car.
I saw that. He commented. I saw the screenshot that he commented under Ann Coulter's tweet. And yeah, that's exactly what he insinuated was you weren't telling them, man, that they were triggering people with their Confederate flag. They were snatched out their car and shot to death in the middle of a street, a couple, right?
Yeah, both their kids have 2 kids. Their 2 kids don't have parents now.
Jesus, see, that's even
and they were infants.
That's horrible.
Infants.
Oh God, see, no, that's disgusting. I mean, how can you not be filled with hate with someone like that, right? Someone says something like that, justifying if it was some rednecks in their pickup truck with their Confederate flag driving around. So fucking what? That doesn't justify a killing of anyone, and to try to throw that in there. So they've dehumanized us, okay? And by us, I mean everyone they put into this white supremacist, blanket and all this shit, which can involve anyone now, right? You don't even need to be white to be thrown in under this blanket.
Yeah, you can be like a black police officer, and they still say they're white because they have a police uniform.
Yeah, look what they say. It's in the language too. They call black people who are like this. They call them Oreos, or they
white
call
facing or something. I forget.
Yeah, they use racism against racism.
Coconuts.
Yeah. So that's horrible. But they are conditioning the people, and we've been seeing this go on for years now, especially ramped up the last 4 or 5 years. They're literally dehumanizing us to where all you got to do is, if I'm on the stage and I'm trying to put this platform out there, Nazi, fascist, white supremacist. And then most people, it's Pavlovian at the end of the day, ringing the bell. They start salivating at the mouth because they hear the magic words. And then now you now are not a human. You are dehumanized now because now you're a fascist. Now you're
deserve to be executed.
Yeah. You deserve no voice. Not only do we cancel you online, we cancel you in life.
Some of these people, they're caricatures of people who are fascists. It's there's no moral compass to it. They treat you like you're Jeepers Creepers or something. You have to be exterminated like a fucking bed bug.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It is. Like I said, they dehumanize us, man. They know what they're doing, and they know they can use this term now. And like I said, it's gotten broader and broader. Who's under this blanket now?
That's even the debate tactics of people who might agree with you, like say like Caleb Maupin. Like regardless of what you think of the guy, like there's a lot of overlap. But like when you had to talk with him, it was evil, racist, violent people make us drink motor oil, shit ourselves to death, violent ideology.
Yeah. And all I was looking for is speaking about those overlaps with him, right? And then it's like, no.
Just want to talk about how nonviolent he was and how violent you were.
Yeah, because I'm the taboo word.
Well, this is actually not that old of a phenomenon. Like it goes all the way back to like Mussolini. Like you probably don't know this. That in 1922, he was debating Gramsci in the Parliament of Italy. And like Gramsci was like one of the big communist theorists that's behind like critical theories, pretty famous, like Bordiga. Well, like Bordiga had an essay on political violence that advocates why moralism does not matter in the case of politics, that only violence does for social change. And like Bordiga was a communist, and like Gramsci agreed with it. And Mussolini used it to justify the fascist revolution, saying that we have the position of violence, therefore we are right. And then Gramsci's position was that violence only counts for us, not for you.
Yeah.
So that's what
they're saying now. That's what they're saying now.
That's what he said. Only our violence matters, not yours. Like
that's why it's largely peaceful protest. That's why it's always a largely peaceful protest, right?
It's literally a cope, because they're basically saying we can be violent, but you can't be violent. It doesn't make sense.
Well, they
our
say
violence
that today,
is justified because you're evil.
Well, look at Antifa and BLM. They justified all that violence. So speaking about Portland, like their whole volunteer riot control unit stepped down because they're charging one of their officers over something stupid, right? And so, but they still have to. If they're called upon, they still have to do it. They're just not volunteer anymore.
You probably don't. I don't know if you remember this, but when you had the Battle of Berkeley like a couple of years ago, they're in like one of the Trump rallies. Yeah, where they were all marching around. There was a college professor out there hit a guy with a bike chain,
lock in a sock. Yeah, hit him with a lock in a.
Yeah, and got a $2 fine.
No, but back to Portland, 80% of the Antifa BLM rioters that they locked up were let free by the same DA who's charging this cop, right? So they're telling you, even the state is telling you, their violence is justified. Yours not. If you get stuck in a crowd of these protesters and God forbid you have your kid in your car, they're banging on your car and you drive through them like you should, you're going to jail for that. You're not getting off for that.
Well, you probably didn't see this. There was a guy on Twitter, like his account got permanently banned not long after, but he posted a picture that he had, and it showed he basically like wiretapped like almost every like Democrat like organizer in the United States. And showed like, and it was like on this big like web, and it showed that the people that were involved like in the presidential campaigns of like Biden, Harris, even Tulsi Gabbard, Sanders, they were all connected to like these various like Antifa groups, and these Antifa groups were connected to things like ADL and then like Soros Foundation. It was like a big web. And then the dude's account got nuked for posting false information. And he had like a thing of all the citations and who's people that he tapped and their docs information and everything.
I did see that he backdoored their phones, I believe.
Yeah. It was crazy, man.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It was like it was a 4-year process apparently too.
Well, not surprising. I mean, once again, when you let out 80% of the people attacking cops and destroying, the public surroundings, obviously they're working together. I mean, who funds Antifa? Who buses these people to these protests and all of this? Oh
man, like you probably didn't see this, but like, the YouTuber Tick, right?
Yeah. Historian guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He pinned my most recent comment because I was basically arguing like there was no capitalists that financed Hitler or Mussolini's like parties, and
because he's pro-capitalist, he's anti-socialist. Yeah. He still pinned it because I had mainstream sources backing up what I said. Yeah. Well,
there was a guy in the comment section saying that I'm lying. These sources aren't true. Capitalists have always financed you people. Then I said, that's cute. So can you tell me about the United States funding Pol Pot and the YPG or the anarchist Rojava group that currently engages in ethnic cleansing ? Like Rojava is literally like a anarchist and communist group in the Middle East, and they engage in ethnic cleansing of Syrians and Turkish people. And they're funded by the United States, and they work with the YPG, which is a Marxist-Leninist organization. And that's also working with the United States. Like when I was in the Army, like my unit, Charlie 1148, and their like headquarters building, the armory, and like this like meeting room, they had a YPG flag in there, and it's literally a fucking communist organization.
Wow. Well,
yeah,
not surprising.
Ridiculous.
We know these people are largely useful idiots for international finance, and they have the audacity to think themselves as revolutionaries, which I think is an insult to all like true revolutionaries. But yeah, obviously they're all hand in hand with each other.
Their ideology has been commodified. I just don't understand how they, how they really
like
think
transgenderism itself is also based on commodification. Because you basically have to consume product to transition to the other gender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you require like heavy materialist intervention. You can't just be. You have to have hormones. You have to have surgery. You have to spend all this money to be what you think that you are. And if you require that much money for maintenance, I don't know what to tell you.
You should probably see more money put into environmental causes instead. Really, it's just something that you see completely abused nowadays by corporations. They use a lot of like environmentalist stuff as like money schemes. The
electric car thing.
Ponzi schemes. There's giant
electric
Ponzi
car
schemes.
Thing.
Is what they
are. The electric car thing is like a huge like scam by the automotive industry to get everybody to buy new cars, and they keep doing, and this keeps happening over and over.
Well, they talk about green energy too, and a lot of the green energy for them is just making unsustainable like solar energy or cutting down trees and burning the trees to make fuel.
Well, on top of that, go on. Sorry.
Oh yeah, the solar energy, for example, is harmful to not only like the environment, but it, also to the animals that are flying past them. How many birds blow up in flames because those reflective solar panels, or like the windmill farms that you have to clear out like these forests in order to put up, and then
nuclear energy is probably the best like green energy, and it's the most sufficient, but they don't invest in it enough. They've invested in these other ones because it's a good way for them to milk money, and a lot of the stuff's based on deforestation too. And like you probably don't know about this, like the white horned rhino is basically extinct now. Like the last male died. There's only a female, and they can't continue the species because of like over poaching. Then you have several like other cases of this happening recently, just completely ridiculous because it's over environmental loss, and they're doing this intentionally.
It's amazing to me that like leftist, being eco-friendly in leftist language, it has, and the end goal is never to reduce consumption. It's just to change the means of consumption.
Well, like environmentalism was originally a nationalist position that was used by fascism and National Socialism. This is something that was adopted by Marxists later on. Like historically, Marxists originally were anti-environmentalism, which is why they were actively pushing for heavy industrialization, anti-agrarianism, and hatred of peasantry. And the Soviet Union, for example, was heavily engaged in whaling, kind of like what you see of Japan nowadays.
Wow.
Well, like with everything, it's not about actual solutions. It's just posturing, right? So, yeah, these electric cars, they're actually not, green friendly, as they're saying. And they also don't put in they actually don't even put in the funding or into a lot of these alternative energies as well. So you have that as well, because you could reduce carbon emissions directly from the factory, but it's going to cost you a lot of money to create these things that catch the carbon right away. That technology is out there. They can do that, but that's too much money. Once again, it's all
they put it into the heated seats and the tablets in the cars that are completely
Michael
unnecessary.
Moore did a pretty good job actually exposing this, like his documentary Planet of the Humans, and like he went to these places to basically investigate this stuff, and he was getting chased around by like police, all kinds of crazy crap.
Dude, the auto industry needs to be broken up.
Yeah, well, a lot of these we're a country like run by monopolies. So yeah, it's like every sector you can look at. Yeah, and even with food distribution, like Monsanto's, like we advocate local farming, terraforming, creating more. So you're having local food from the state you're in, right? Rebuilding that. We got away from our agricultural life. We shouldn't. We should just elevate it. And use our developments and research and technology that has grown to make it more accessible to people in their local area. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's like 85% government-owned empty land here, desert. You can terraform that. You can make greenhouses there. We can have farms here. We can provide ourselves with the meat and the vegetables we need in each state.
But cultured thug, we got to have gambling instead.
Yeah, we got
gambling and hookers.
Gambling and hookers. It's so I believe, even though like the cultural shift for people to like to really get on board with like a lot of things we talk about is pretty big. I have a belief, and you know, it's you can't see it anywhere. It's not material, but I have a belief that most people are like empty and sick of this and know this is wrong and want something more than life than just consuming. So I have the hope, and it is a hope that when they hear something like this and when they see something real, because they've never even had the opportunity or the option to hear about anything about what we're talking about, like on our platform. So when they see real people running, like in the local Democrat race and saying these things, that I believe people are going to gravitate towards that, even if it's subconsciously, they don't know that they're just sick with this. Life is empty. You can only consume so much. It will never fill that void in you. And I think most people are starting to understand that and come to that realization.
This is probably a big question. I don't know if you'll be able to explain it fully, but how would you see, like, if like an American third position, like whatever you want to call it, was completely ingrained in America? Like, how would you say it would transform like the character of the individual in America? Like, how would the new man like turn out? Like, what would you see that person being like idealized as? Obviously, this is like not completely related to the platform, but I just want to hear what you say. I liked your video where you talked about like the philosophy of fascism, for example, where you were talking about the creation of a new man.
Yeah. Ideally, it would be a very Faustian man, and you know, Spengler's terminology, a man that seeks self-improvement within himself and his surrounding, a man that has the discipline to make the best out of himself mentally and physically, and a man who cares about his surrounding and his nation and contributes to that. So I would say a man driven by motivation of becoming a better self and a better part of the whole would be the ideal new man. Someone who's always, like Yukio Mishima said, like the task of being a man was constantly climbing, never to reach the top, but just a constant climb. And having that mentality in young men, I think will revitalize the energy of people in America, and men especially, who are definitely under attack. We talk about everyone else who's under attack. Men themselves are under attack too because of their identity, right? It's the same thing. Masculinity is now a bad word. It's toxic now. And I'm saying reinvigorating that masculine drive would be detrimental to the people of America and getting us where I think we have the potential to be.
Okay, so like a revival of like masculine eros, basically. But like, I do know, like in the context of like the United States, it definitely seems like there's more of a emphasis on negative liberty. So like, if people know what I'm referencing, like Isaiah Berlin was like a philosopher, and he has stuff where he's talking about totalitarianism, and he's kind of like dissecting fascism and National Socialism, and he was looking at the understandings of liberty in those regimes. And like Mazzini, which is like one of the guys who influenced Gentile on his communitarian aspects, including like Alfredo Rocco, was like this big emphasis on negative and positive liberty. And like negative liberty was a liberty that was more abstract. It was based on the self and it was narcissistic, whereas like a positive liberty was more focused about the familia structure, the community, and the society as a whole. And as long as like your liberty made you into your true self to help the community. And it definitely seems like most Western or like modern liberalism is more focused on that negative liberty that Mazzini would speak of. And Mazzini wanted to like foster, like through the National Risorgimento, the unification of Italy, was like the idea of a nation and a community. Because like prior, you didn't have that existing in the historical context, and part of that mission was creating a nation, creating a language and a dialect. Because prior, you didn't have a single language, a single culture, or ethnicity, and it definitely seems like kind of like with a lot of these Mediterranean experiments of fascism, is kind of like the direction America is going, where it's going to have to create this new this identity. And it's not something that's going to exist homogenously. Like a lot of these projects had to create themselves, will themselves into existence. And I think that's what you guys are actually doing. And it seems very good to me.
Yeah. Well, that's with everything. We are products of our environment, whether people like to think they're above it or not. Once again, why are we like the fattest nation in the world? Well, look at our environment, right? So yeah, just the same way they deconstructed us through the environment, we can construct people through the environment.
All right. And if you guys want to have more like outreach with like anybody who's like quote unquote like a minority group, that would probably be good down to have a dialogue. You could try talking with the guy who's in this chat, the Billy Corn Pop guy, because like he's associated with some of the Hispanic nationalist groups that are like in the United States that kind of have similar ideas to you guys. So you might be able to have a dialogue with them. I've
spoken with him before. I've been on his podcast before.
All right. Yeah, there's definitely not a lot of nice guys. They get a lot of hate too, but
yeah.
Is Billy Corn Pop, or are you two on good terms?
Guillemaro guy. Yeah.
Who,
Escobar. Yeah.
Far as I know, yeah, I haven't spoken to him since, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, whenever I went on his podcast.
Oh yeah.
I haven't really seen much. Yeah. But yeah, as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we're really kind of like already past everything to talk about. So I guess I can go ahead and get ready to end it. So anything you want to ask, Anon?
I got something to say. I do like the platform of A3P, and I especially enjoy the removal of religion from it, the removal of the identity politics, because I think that is going to help a lot for a platform, and especially like suck a lot of the emotionalism out of it, because I think what happens a lot is that, people, they get red pilled, quote unquote, and then like immediately they get sucked down into identity politics. And because of that keeps them in a perpetual emotional cycle where they're just angry, sad, enraged. But A3P does offer an alternative insofar as like, hey, okay, if you want to be upset about something, be upset about something real that doesn't just turn you against the average person, and just focus on attacking the system and having real politic. You don't have to worry so much about like your religion or your identity in this context, and I like that of it. So, and I appreciate you guys coming on to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys having us on to talk about.
Oh yeah, no problem. So, anything you like, CT, you want to say before we end it?
If you're listening to this, check out the platform. Understand there's nothing like what we're doing that has been done in modern history. This is not a LARP. You're not joining a group. We're not even a group. We're
not even the National Reformation Party, guys. They actually do stuff.
we are going to, we're not just like a vacuum for people to throw money into and we'll just be your echo chamber and go on about Jews and blacks all day long. No, it's people who are going to put themselves out there at their own risk because we're ideologues of third position, and we're not worth a damn if we call ourselves third positionists and we're not willing to take our message to the people. So it's a handful of individuals who are going to go out there and either be heroes or fools and understand that going into this, but are willing to put themselves out there to get third position on the mainstream stage. So I would really encourage people to check out our platform, to support us, to get the books, to send donations, to help us however you can. If you agree with 80% of the platform, it's still better than anything else you're going to get in the real world. And you're having people who are going to put themselves out there in the real world and, try to take this message out there because we are who we say we are. And so just look into that and support it. It's not a LARP. It's not spend up money, support. Only reason why we're doing shows like Ronan Report and anything else, so we can build support and funding so we can get out there and try to combat the system. I mean, our goal now is $10,000 for each person running. That's pennies compared to the $2 million the person is going to spend we're going to run against, right? But that's still something. That still gets posters around town. That still gets us on a public stage. So it's like, look into it, support it. If you're third position and you're not supporting what we're doing, then I don't know how you can call yourself a third position. I don't know how you can't back people who are willing to put themselves out there and not just create another internet group and sit online and talk about things all day long, but build themselves up to actually go headfirst into this system and take a true message. We're all believers in this, and we all believe this will save this country. So support that, look into it, because we need it. We need it. We're refined right now to this tiny little bubble on the internet. And I get it. There's a lot of people in this little bubble that are more into, like, they just want to talk about race. They just want to talk about certain things they always talk about in their echo chamber. But we're stuck here because we can't get nowhere else on the internet. No one else is going to give us any shine anywhere, any conversation, get our voice out there at all. I've been trying to get on these bigger channels and all of that, and it's not going to happen. So we're going to have to use the small support we have the best we can. So look into it and support it. We're trying to take this ideal to the people because I 100% believe the people will get behind this when they see what it is.
Like Anon was saying, a lot of people are angry and they're discontent and they're pissed off. Why don't they use that energy and focus it towards positive goals instead of just being angry online and posting about how the world's going to shit? We're trying to change things, and why can't others do that instead of just posting online? Do something
because
productive.
it's easy. Because
it seems like their only idea of advocating like a political ideology is putting on Joker paint or going on like Omegle and calling people.
Well, I shouldn't say why. I should say they should do something else. I know why they're doing it. We all know why, because it's easy. It's a cope.
Well,
but we're not going to save this country by just posting memes and reading chats.
And you look at all the popular content creators, like you're talking about the Omegle dude. That's a lot of them are just trolls, snarky comedians, right? Yeah. Making racial jokes,
or misanthropic people,
or
literally glowies.
Yeah. So it's a shame that those people are like perceived to represent our movement.
Yeah. Well, I've always hated. Once again, that's the reason I made my channel at the beginning, like 2013, the Culture Thug one, was because I got so sick of hearing fascism be misrepresented by even people calling themselves fascists. So I'm like, okay, I guess someone's going to have to really explain like what these things are from the books they come from. And that thing, sadly, there's more ignorant people today calling themselves fascists than there was in 2013. So it hasn't changed. It's just gotten more. Despite my little efforts, despite efforts like people like Zoltanous and the other Carl now.
Well, one thing I could think of is that you have people like push like the myth that like say like Hitler had no economic position, and like that's literally something that Schacht told him to say so he could get political support. So it would undermine the socialistic aspects of the platform. Like it's literally just a cope from people. Like there's a complete ideology and philosophy behind this stuff. It's just that they're not interested in looking at it. They just want to act like a troll, or they just want to be racist.
I think that's part of it, that a lot of them come from like the conservative background, and that has like a really strong anti-intellectual aspect to it.
Oh, well, it's like I've been called like a theory cell just for like wanting to read books. Like, don't read books, guy. That's bad. Like, oh, this guy is probably a political scientist, IRL. I would body this.
You can't oversimplify this to me in like a 1 or 3 word meme. It's not worth listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead and probably end this. I'm gonna go ahead and end it.